Everyone remembers the 12 labors of Heracles, the Nemean lion, the Hydra, the golden apples, Cerberus dragged up from the underworld. But one of our most detailed ancient accounts says something surprising. Heracles was not originally ordered to perform 12 labors at all. He was ordered to perform 10. 2 were rejected, 2 replacements were added, and the famous number 12 was born from a story about obedience, punishment, divine rivalry, and impossible standards. The 12 were not always 12. The first thing to understand is that Greek myth did not begin with one official checklist titled the 12 Labors of Heracles. The Homeric poems already know that Heracles suffered under Eurystheus and was forced to carry out terrible tasks. In the Iliad, Athena remembers helping him when Eurystheus imposed difficult labors, and one of the most famous is already there, bringing Cerberus up from Hades. But Homer does not stop and give us the familiar numbered sequence of 12. If you enjoy discovering what the ancient sources actually say behind famous Greek myths, subscribe to Gods and Heroes Unveiled. We uncover another hidden detail in every video. That complete list belongs to a later stage of the tradition, when storytellers and mythographers organized a huge mass of Heracles stories into a recognizable cycle. This matters because the question is not simply, why did someone choose the number 12? There were several layers to the answer. Why was Heracles forced to serve Eurystheus at all? Why did ancient writers connect that service with guilt and purification? And why, in one major surviving account, did 10 tasks become 12? The answer begins before Heracles was even born. Why Eurystheus could command Heracles? Heracles was stronger than Eurystheus, more famous than Eurystheus, more heroic than Eurystheus. So why was this seemingly lesser king allowed to order him into one impossible danger after another? Homer gives us the cruel setup in Book 19 of the Iliad. Zeus announces that a child of his own blood, born that day from the line of Perseus, will rule over the people around him. Hera immediately sees the weakness in the promise. She makes Zeus swear to it. Then she interferes with the timing of 2 births. Alcmene is carrying Heracles, the son of Zeus. But Hera delays Heracles' birth and causes Eurystheus, another descendant of Perseus, to be born first. Zeus realizes too late that his oath has trapped his own son beneath Eurystheus' authority. That is the first great irony of the labors. The strongest hero in Greece does not serve the strongest king. He serves the man who arrived first because Hera outmaneuvered Zeus. The Crime and the Oracle. A later account preserved by Pseudo-Apollodorus adds the event that turns Heracles' service into something much darker. After Heracles has already become a great warrior and married Megara, Hera drives him into madness. In that madness, he kills his own children and children of his brother Iphicles. The ancient account is horrifying, but the important point for the labors is what happens after Heracles regains control of himself. He does not simply walk away. He condemns himself to exile, undergoes purification, and goes to Delphi to ask where he should live. The Pythian priestess gives him an answer that defines the next part of his life. He must live at Tiryns. He must serve Eurystheus for 12 years. And he must perform the labors Eurystheus imposes. Pseudo-Apollodorus then gives the detail that modern retellings often flatten out. The oracle tells him to perform 10 labors, not 12. When those tasks are completed, the account says Heracles will become immortal. So in this version, the labors are tied to more than adventure. They are tied to service, purification, endurance, and a path out of catastrophe. 10 labors, not 12. Eurystheus begins with 10 assignments. Heracles must kill the Nemean lion, destroy the Lernaean Hydra, capture the Ceryneian hind, bring back the Erymanthian boar, clean the stables of Augeas in a single day, drive away the Stymphalian birds. Capture the Cretan bull. Bring back the Mares of Diomedes. Obtain the belt of Hippolyta. And finally bring back the cattle of Geryon from the far edge of the world. Even this list shows that strength alone was never enough. The lion demanded close combat when arrows failed. The hind demanded restraint because it was sacred to Artemis. The Augean Stables demanded ingenuity instead of brute force. The cattle of Geryon demanded an enormous journey before the central confrontation even began. The labors test Heracles across different kinds of impossible situations. But after the 10th task, he still is not finished. Not because he failed to kill a monster. Not because he ran away. Because Eurystheus refuses to count 2 victories. Why 2 labors did not count? The first rejected labor is the Lernaean Hydra. Heracles attacks the many-headed creature, but every time he destroys one of its mortal heads, more grow in its place. He eventually calls on Iolaus for help. Iolaus burns the neck stumps so they cannot regenerate while Heracles destroys the remaining heads. They win. Eurystheus says it does not count. According to Pseudo-Apollodorus, Heracles did not overcome the Hydra by himself because Iolaus helped him. The second rejected labor is the cleaning of the Augean Stables. Heracles makes an agreement with King Augeas for a reward if he can clean the massive cattle yards in a single day. Then, instead of carrying the filth out by hand, he diverts rivers through the stables and lets the water do the work. Again, he succeeds. Again, Eurystheus refuses to count it. This time the reason is that Heracles had agreed to do the work for payment. The standard is almost absurdly strict. Get help, and the victory can be rejected. Seek payment, and the victory can be rejected. That is how 10 becomes 12 in this version. The problem is no longer simply whether Heracles can complete impossible tasks. It is whether Eurystheus will recognize that they were completed under the right conditions. The 2 labors that made 12. Because 2 tasks are disqualified, Eurystheus adds 2 more. The first sends Heracles beyond the ordinary Greek world to obtain the golden apples of the Hesperides. The journey becomes an adventure of its own. Different traditions disagree about exactly where the apples were and how Heracles obtained them. In the account of Pseudo-Apollodorus, Atlas plays the crucial role. Heracles temporarily takes the burden of the heavens while Atlas retrieves the apples, then uses cleverness to make Atlas take the burden back. The hero famous for muscle survives through negotiation and trickery. Then comes the final labor, Cerberus. Heracles must descend alive into Hades, obtain the guardian of the dead, and bring him up to the world above. Even here, there are rules. Hades allows Heracles to take Cerberus if he can master the creature without using his weapons. Heracles does it, brings Cerberus to Eurystheus, shows that the impossible command has been fulfilled, and then returns the guardian to the underworld. The cycle that began with a lion in the hills of Nemea ends at the boundary between life and death. And now the famous number is complete. Not every ancient story agreed. There is one more complication. Pseudo-Apollodorus gives us the elegant story of 10 original labors, 2 rejected tasks, and 2 replacements. Diodorus Siculus preserves a different structure. In his account, the number 12 is part of the arrangement from the beginning. Eurystheus is to rule, Heracles is to serve him, and 12 labors will lead toward immortality. Later, when Heracles consults Delphi, he is again told to perform 12 tasks commanded by Eurystheus. The chronology of Heracles' madness is different too. Pseudo-Apollodorus places the killing of the children before the service to Eurystheus and makes Delphi part of the transition into the labors. Euripides, in his tragedy Heracles, does something dramatically different. Heracles returns from the underworld after completing his great labors, saves his family from a usurper, and only then is struck with madness and destroys the people he loves. that changes the emotional meaning completely. In one tradition, catastrophe helps send Heracles toward the labors. In Euripides, catastrophe waits at the end of them. So we should be careful with statements like, Heracles did 12 labors because he killed his family. That is a powerful and influential version of the mythic sequence. It is not the only ancient sequence. Why the 12 labors endured? So why did Heracles have to complete the 12 labors? Because Hera's rivalry placed Eurystheus above him. Because divine commands and oracles bound the hero to service. In some traditions, because he needed a path forward after an unbearable crime. And in Pseudo-Apollodorus, because 2 of the original 10 were rejected and replaced. But the number 12 became bigger than the technical story that produced it. The labors turned Heracles into a hero who could be sent anywhere. A lion's cave, a poison swamp, a sacred wilderness, a filthy cattle yard, an Amazon kingdom, the far western ocean, the garden at the edge of the world, the realm of the dead. Each task expands the map of what Heracles can survive, and each task changes the kind of problem he must solve. Sometimes he needs strength, sometimes patience, sometimes help, sometimes deception, sometimes restraint, sometimes the willingness to walk into a place no living person should enter. That may be why the cycle became so powerful in Greek art and storytelling. The labors are not 12 versions of the same fight. They are 12 different ways to test the limits of one hero. And the strangest part is that, in one of our fullest surviving accounts, the most famous 12-part challenge in Greek mythology began as 10. Tell us which labor you want us to investigate next. And if you want to continue Heracles' journey, watch our Cerberus video next. The final labor takes him straight to the Guardian of Hades.